It's time once again to get on the NHL Draft Lottery Simulation tool. We're going to have some fun today and take a look at who will possibly win the first overall pick and have the rights to draft Connor Bedard. We'll take a look at the Draft Lottery Simulation and do a mock draft coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we're going to have a little bit of fun here with the NHL Draft Lottery Simulation tool. It won't be too much longer where we won't need to do this because we'll know the exact drafting order because the Draft Lottery is not that far into the future. But for now, I thought we'd have a little bit more fun and see if we have a different outcome on the Draft Lottery Simulation tool. The last time we did this, the team with the best odds, the Anaheim Ducks, were the victorious team in the Draft Lottery. We did see some other movement, and we'll see if we get something here a little bit different today. Of course, there's been some player movement in the draft player rankings as well. So like I said, once we have the Draft Lottery Simulation complete, we'll do a top 10 mock draft and give you my thoughts on who the players would be selected. So we're now going to jump onto the computer. We're going to go to tankathon.com. We're going to use the Draft Lottery Simulator. We'll take a quick look at the standings just to remind everybody of what the odds are for each team to win. And then we'll complete the simulation and see who the lucky team is. So as you can see, we're now on the tankathon.com website where we can simulate the NHL Draft Lottery. So here's the order that the teams are in based on their odds of winning and obviously based on the standings at the finish of the 23 NHL regular season. So we have the Anaheim Ducks with the best odds. You got Columbus, Chicago, San Jose, Montreal, Arizona, Philadelphia, Washington, Detroit, St. Louis, Vancouver. Those are the teams that are eligible to win the NHL Draft Lottery's first overall selection. Now, other teams in the lottery here, including this Ottawa pick, which is now owned by the Coyotes, the Sabres, Penguins, Predators, and Flames, they can all win the lottery too. They just can't move up all the way to number one because there is a limitation on how high you can go, with the maximum number of spots moving up being the number 10. So obviously anybody below the Canucks are not eligible to go all the way to number one, although it could still be a substantial win and big pickup for the bottom teams if they're be fortunate enough to win that spot. Now let's look quickly at the actual odds here. As you can see, the Anaheim Ducks, being the team with the best odds, still only have a 25.5% chance to actually win the first overall pick. So the odds, unfortunately, are still against them. There's a 55% chance that they'll actually end up losing and finish in third place. The two other teams would actually win this lottery and they would get bumped down. Of course, we've seen in NHL history, some teams moving up a lot, like the year where we had the Rangers and the Kings with the Lafreniere and Kakko draft selections. We've seen other years where, like the Maple Leafs, for example, were fortunate enough. They had the best odds, and they won the lottery, getting the rights to draft Austin Matthews. It's really difficult to say how it's going to go, but let's jump back over here to where we can simulate and see how it works out. Now, we've done this exercise on the channel a handful of times throughout the season here since the last number of months. We've had some different teams win. We've had the Ducks win. We've had the Flyers win. Now let's see who works out to be the winner here today. Oh, look at that. The Washington Capitals move up 7 spots and grab first overall. Can you imagine Connor Bedard getting to play with Alex Ovechkin for the remainder of his career? And the Blackhawks also win one of the draft lottery spots, moving up from number 3 to number 2. So as I was just saying, the odds are against the Ducks winning, and the best chance would be for them to actually not get either lottery spot and move down to number 3. And that's exactly what has happened here in this draft lottery simulation. So now we have the Capitals picking first, the Blackhawks, followed by the Ducks, Jackets, Sharks, Habs, Coyotes, Flyers, Red Wings, Blues, and Canucks in the top 11. Obviously, the 12 to 16 remains the same via the standings. A lot of Ottawa pick as well. Had they been fortunate enough to win, is top 5 protected. So if the Senators are fortunate enough to move up the 10 spots and get all the way up into the top 3 picks, then they can keep that selection and defer that pick to Arizona in the Chychrun trade to next year's draft and the 2024 ones. So next step is we're going to complete a mock draft for the top 10 picks in this order. So let's stay tuned here and we'll get started with that. Selecting first overall, we have the Washington Capitals, and there's no doubt they'll take Connor Bedard from the WHL's Regina Pats. As we've talked about before, and a lot of people know by now, Connor Bedard is going to likely be what we refer to as a generational talent. To me, in my opinion, he is going to be ranked right up there with the greatest first overall picks in the last 10, 20 years with guys like Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. Not to say he's going to be the exact same kind of player as either of them because they're even different themselves. But he's got a wicked shot, great hockey sense, great anticipation, terrific skater. He has all the skills to be a top point-producing #1 center on it, which is going to completely, transform somebody's franchise here. Imagine Connor Bedard getting a chance to play with Alex Ovechkin as his winger for the first at least few years of his NHL career. That would be a phenomenal thing to see for sure. Next up, picking second, we have the Chicago Blackhawks. I think it's pretty clear. Adam Fantilli, the University of Michigan, is the pretty clear consensus #2 overall pick. The Hobey Baker winner will also be, a #1, likely a for sure top 6 centerman who's going to at least alter a franchise drastically. May not do to the same level as Bedard. Fantilli sometimes I think gets overshadowed, and other drafts with a player like Bedard not necessarily involved, he'd be getting a lot more fanfare, but he is a really, really good player. Showed that this year to the University of Michigan. I'm not sure we're going to call him generational, but we're certainly going to call him, a top centerman that's going to drastically impact a franchise. And a team like Chicago go through a deep rebuild, but be lucky to have him. Third overall, we have the Anaheim Ducks, who are unlucky in this lottery. They'll select Swedish player Leo Carlsson, who's a pretty good consolation prize, if I must say so myself, for being the #3 overall pick. Of course, Carlsson plays center. He can also play wing. Not quite clear what he's going to be at the NHL level here just yet, but still, the top 3 in this draft is pretty clear and concise. There's not really going to be any surprises in this level of the draft right now. Carlsson does a lot of things really well and be an extremely great complementary piece to add to some of the other young talent in Anaheim, Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Jamie Drysdale, etc. It would be a great pickup. Picking 4th overall, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets. We have the Jackets selecting Will Smith for the United States National Team Development Program. Will Smith is one heck of a player. He's been a fast high riser in the NHL draft this year. He is a player that he's just got a full tool package. Like, to me, he's got great hands, great skater, high-end playmaker. He can shoot the puck as well. A player who's committed to going to college, so you're going to have to wait a little while. He's going to Boston College next season, but still that'll help him really continue to strongly develop his game. But this guy has been putting up highlight reel goals and highlight reel plays all season. He's had a major impact on his team and is going to continue to do so next year. He may not be getting the attention that the top 3 guys get in this draft, but putting up 123 points in 58 games with the U.S. National Under-18 team is incredibly impressive. And as like I said, it's a highlight reel waiting to happen. So Columbus would be quite lucky and fortunate to get him in this slot. Even the Columbus Blue Jackets beat writer for The Athletic, Aaron Portzline, said if they end up picking 4th overall, Will Smith will likely be their selection, no doubt. Picking next, #5 overall, we have the San Jose Sharks. I have the Sharks selecting arguably the top defenseman of this draft, David Reinbacher. Now, Reinbacher is a player, to me, is going to be a pretty solid offensive defenseman, good power play guy, good skater, good edge work. Defensively, he's not too bad. He's got decent size and skill. Like, he's already 6'2" and 187 pounds. So he's got the size. Doesn't always play like it. Over time, he'll have to improve his physical part of his game, which he'll need to be successful in the NHL, especially when you get deep in the season and into the playoffs. But Reinbacher, to me, would make an excellent power play specialist defenseman for just about any team. But the Sharks are going to be rebuilding, obviously going through maybe even trading Erik Karlsson here. Reinbacher won't step into the NHL likely right away, but in a year or two's time, he'd be able to step in and, at an early age, I think, run their power play. At 6 overall, we have the Montreal Canadiens, and I have them selecting Matvei MItchkov. I do think there's a good chance MItchkov will fall in this draft to this part here, maybe the 6, 7, 8 range. I don't know how far exactly he could go, but obviously the Russian factor and the fact that they're going to have to wait a few years for him to make the jump to the NHL might turn off some teams and cause them to go in a different direction. However, the Montreal Canadiens were reportedly one team that's extremely interested in this guy. Obviously, part of their amateur scouting, Nick Bobrov's incredibly high in this player, referred to him as the Russian Bedard, reportedly. Obviously, regardless of what his exact comments were or thoughts are on Michkov, he's a terrific, terrific talent that could be a franchise-altering player. At one point, a few years back, he was in a conversation with Bedard for maybe being drafted #1 or #2 overall. So I have no doubt Michkov will be a terrific pick for anybody who selects him. But Montreal reportedly has lots of interest, and if he's available when they pick at this selection, they're taking him. Next up, we have the Arizona Coyotes selecting 7th overall. We have another U.S.-born player here, Ryan Leonard from the United States National Team Development Program. Leonard would be a great pick for a variety of teams. He might be the best pure goal scorer possibly in this draft. Ryan Leonard is a player who has been a high riser this year. I think he's kind of moved up his stock here quite a bit. He is 5'11", 180 pounds. He will be going to Boston College as well. So obviously he's going to be a teammate here with Will Smith coming up. Put up some big numbers as well in the United States U18 team, putting up 91 points in 55 games this year. So a very talented high-end goal scorer with lots of potential. Next at 8th overall, we have the Philadelphia Flyers. They're going to be entering a rebuild, and I am taking Matthew Wood, who's a Canadian-born player, but will be obviously playing hockey in the United States. Already had a season in the NCAA for the University of Connecticut under his belt. He plays center and left wing. Good size, 6'3", 190 pounds. Put up some pretty good numbers at Connecticut this past year with 34 points in 35 games. Considering his age and the number of players that will be older, stronger, more mature that he's playing against, that's certainly an excellent result for him. I think Matthew Wood will definitely be a player who kind of may surprise some people here and kind of go a little bit higher on the draft. I know when the last ranking system come out here for the NHL Central Scouting, his increase was pretty substantial, where some other scouting services have him maybe closer to that 15 to 20 range. But I think he's going to surprise and end up going top 10. Picking 9th overall, we have the Detroit Red Wings, and I have them selecting Zach Benson of the WHL's Winnipeg Ice. Benson is an incredibly talented, skilled player, 5'10", 160 pounds, so he certainly could use a little bit more strength, that much we know for sure. However, Benson, like I said, an incredibly talented kid, 98 points this year in 60 games playing for Winnipeg in the WHL, just shy of 18 years of age, turns 18 on May the 12th. A very, very high-end skill player. He would give Detroit a different kind of player, different kind of prospect that they don't really have much in their system here. Obviously, mostly they've drafted a lot of European players here in the last few drafts. This would be a different kind of skilled player with a different skill set here to add something different here to the mix of players trying to make the next wave of Red Wings prospects to make the NHL. Next up, we have the St. Louis Blues, which would be the 10th overall pick, and we have them selecting another U.S.-born player, Gabriel Perreault. Obviously, he would be a second-generation NHL player. The son of former NHLer Yannick Perreault. He has technically dual citizenship between his father being Canadian and his mother being American, but has chosen to represent the U.S. on international competition here. Perreault is a player that might surprise some. Some scouting services have him ranked a little bit lower, but I think Perreault is going to be a high-rising player. He's also committed to going to Boston College, so he's going to play with Will Smith, Ryan Leonard at that program next year. Certainly a player who had a phenomenal year, put up 53 goals and 130 points for the U.S. National U18 team. Absolute great talented kid. We have one last bonus pick here. We have the Vancouver Canucks with the next selection, and they will select Axel Sandin-Pellikka, the next, in my opinion, the next best defenseman in this draft, obviously with David Reinbacher. Sandin-Pellikka is a pretty unique defenseman here. Obviously, good offensive instincts, has decent size, but not great. Like he's your newer prototypical defenseman in the NHL. That's smaller, but very quick and agile and a good puck mover, 5'11", 181 pounds. Obviously hails from Sweden. Had a pretty good showing in the World Juniors this past year. That's where to me, a lot of his talents really stood out. Didn't put up a lot of points, but certainly made a lot of strong plays and really showed off his strong skating. I think he could be a real solid, good puck-moving defenseman for any NHL team that's lucky to draft him. So those are my top 10 draft selections. We've seen another round here of the draft lottery being simulated. Let me know your thoughts. Which team do you think really needs Connor Bedard the most? Where would you like to see him go? And of course, let me know your thoughts on my picks, and maybe give me yours in the comments if you think it would be different players going to different teams. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.